We start off our testimony meetings with my dear brothers and sisters. And literally we are brothers and sisters because we're all children of our Heavenly Father, but we are blood brothers and sisters. So we have a wonderful legacy to follow those who came before us. I had a history that I brought along that I wanted to share because I knew there were a lot of you that are new in the family and didn't really know. And I know there's not time for that, but can I tell you just a little bit of it? So I know that you know that Ida Jesperson was my grandmother, and of course your great, whatever down the line you go. But she and her family came from Norway, and they came to the gospel saved. And when they got to Omaha, Nebraska, they didn't have enough money to get a covered wagon and things to go on to Salt Lake. And so they needed a sheriff in that town, and so her father got the job of being sheriff. And so it was while they were in Omaha that Ida was born. And so they were there 9 years. So she was 7 when they went by the handcart company to go to Salt Lake. And she remembered how her mother and her 2 sisters and her brother walked that 1,000 miles, but because she was 7, every once in a while they put her on the handcart and let her ride. Then I wanted to tell you just a little story and change the scene to after they got to Utah, why her father saw this strong young Danish boy that had come from Denmark, and he went to him and he had offered to hire him to work for him. And he said that if you will, I will pay you for your work and I'll give you board and room. And then in the evening, my daughter, who's a teacher, she'll teach you English. Well, her sister kidded her and called that Danish boy her new beau, and she says, he's not my beau. She says, I wouldn't marry a Danish boy. They have the funniest names, Pedersen, Jorgensen, and Jesperson, you know. So anyhow, as at the end, after they did their day's work, in the evening she would teach him English. And then he would help her clean up her schoolroom. And so after a year's time, why, they began to fall in love. But he had to work to earn money to send for his mother to come. And a year later, they worked to send for his father to come to finally get a Danish family here. And so then they were married. And then now I'm going to change the scene. That when my father, who was their oldest child, when my father was 12 years old, why, Ida had a sister Mary that was in the Marine colonies, and she wanted Emma to come to where they could be together. And so she talked to Grandpa Hans Peter Jesperson in taking their family and going. So they left Ridgefield to go to the Marine colonies. Well, while they were crossing, if I had time, I could tell you all the things my dad told out. That covered wagon was loaded, but it was very interesting. But anyhow, my father was 12 years old, and he had learned to shoot and learned how to kill game for their food. And so they gave him the job to kill the turkeys, the rabbits, the quail, whatever along the way for their food. And so when they got to the Indian reservations, why, Grandpa was leaning over, pulling some little slivers and thorns out of the cuff of his pants. And the children, Grandma was in the wagon, and the children that were outside him, and she looked, and Grandpa then heard these hoof prints of horses coming. And he looked up, and here was 4 big Apache Indians coming with their immobile faces. That means they're really stern faces. And they came up, and then the children said, Mama, are they going to hurt us? And she comforted them and said, you know, when we left Ridgefield, we all knelt down and we asked Heavenly Father to bless us that we would be saved. And she said, Heavenly Father, you would be crossing Indian reservations. And we knew that we would, and so you know that Heavenly Father is going to bless us. And so these children were under their mother's skirts with their little heads peeking out to just see what was happening with these big old Indians out there. Well, you know what? Grandpa just cooked dinner for them. And so these Indians, they cleaned up all the food, and then they left. Well, they remembered what Brigham Young said, that if you're kind to the Indians, they won't hurt you. And so that's what Grandpa was doing. So for 3 days,